It was midnight when they met, an unexpected encounter that would change their lives forever. In the dimly lit hallway of the restaurant, their eyes locked for the first time. And in that moment, everything else faded away. As the seconds stretched into eternity, they both knew that something deep and undeniable had begun. A kiss was shed in the silence, and neither of them knew then that this single moment would lead to a secret love story they'd have to fight for every single day. Grace had always been the kind of person who kept to herself, focused on her work at the upscale restaurant she had been employed at for the last 2 years. She was an assistant manager, but despite her responsibilities, she never allowed herself to get too involved with the personal lives of the others around her. She wasn't a romantic. At least, that's what she told herself every day. The restaurant, La Belle Cuisine, was a prestigious place in downtown Los Angeles, and its head chef, Ryan Park, was a well-known figure in the culinary world. Ryan wasn't just the best at what he did. He was also charming, handsome, and wealthy. He had inherited the restaurant from his father, who had passed away when Ryan was just a young man. Now, at 30 years old, Ryan was the face of the restaurant, the heart of its success, and to many, the epitome of perfection. He had it all, except for love. Grace had always admired Ryan from a distance. She'd watched him work tirelessly, managing the kitchen with precision and skill. But he seemed so far out of her league. He was rich, powerful, and charismatic. She, on the other hand, had grown up in a small town, worked hard to put herself through college, and had built a life in the city on her own. She'd never imagined a man like Ryan would even notice someone like her. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. It happened one late night. The restaurant had closed, and the lights in the kitchen were dimmed. Grace had stayed behind to finish some paperwork long after the other employees had left. She was just about to grab her things when she heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, she found herself face to face with Ryan. He had stayed late too, as he often did, refining his next big dish. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. There was a strange tension in the air, one that neither of them could explain. Ryan took a step closer, his dark eyes studying her face with an intensity that made Grace's heart race. "I didn't expect to see you here this late," Ryan said quietly, breaking the silence. "I could say the same to you," Grace replied, her voice softer than she intended. There was a pause, and then, without any warning, Ryan took another step closer. Their breaths mingled in the air between them, and Grace felt her heart pounding in her chest. They had always shared a professional relationship, and she knew that any kind of personal connection between them was forbidden. But in that moment, all the rules seemed to disappear. Without a word, Ryan leaned in and kissed her, gentle at first, then more urgent as the passion between them grew. The kiss was electric, as if every part of her was waking up for the first time. Grace had never kissed anyone like this before. It felt like all the walls she had built around her heart were crashing down in an instant. She kissed him back, the heat of the moment sweeping over her. When they finally pulled away, breathless, neither of them said anything. Ryan looked at her with a quiet intensity, and Grace couldn't bring herself to look away. They both knew that this moment, this kiss, was something they couldn't ignore, something that could change everything. The night stretched on, and they spent it together. They talked, laughed, and shared stories they had never told anyone. In the quiet of that empty restaurant, their connection deepened. By the time the sun began to rise, Grace knew one thing for certain. She had fallen for him. But their romance, as passionate as it was not without its complications. Grace and Ryan couldn't let anyone know about what had happened between them. They both worked in the same place, and the lines between professional and personal were blurred. If anyone found out, it could destroy both their careers. Ryan knew the risks of getting involved with someone like Grace. She was an employee, and he was the boss. Even though they were both adults, the power imbalance was undeniable. Ryan's family expected him to marry someone from the same social status, someone who would fit into his world of wealth and privilege. Grace, on the other hand, had built her own life with hard work and dedication. She wasn't someone who wanted to be controlled by anyone, especially a man like Ryan. As weeks passed, their secret affair continued in the shadows. They would steal moments together, late at night, when the restaurant was empty, sharing quick kisses and quiet conversations. But the strain of keeping everything hidden began to take its toll. Grace longed for the day when they wouldn't have to hide their love anymore. She wanted to tell the world about Ryan, to shout from the rooftops that she loved him. But she knew that for now, their love had to remain a secret. Ryan, too, was struggling. He was torn between his love for Grace and his family's expectations. His mother had already begun to arrange meetings with potential brides, women from wealthy families who were perfect matches for him. But none of them made his heart race like Grace did. He wanted to be with her, but he didn't know how to make that happen without causing a scandal. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Ryan invited Grace to a quiet dinner. It was their first chance to speak openly, without fear of being overheard. "I've been thinking a lot," Ryan said, his voice serious. "I want to be with you, Grace. I've never felt this way before, but I don't know how we can make this work. My family won't accept us." Grace looked at him, her heart aching. "I know, Ryan. I know the risks. But I can't keep living like this, hiding in the shadows. I don't want to be your secret anymore." They both sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their situation hanging heavily between them. Finally, Ryan spoke. "I want to marry you, Grace, but we'll have to fight for it. We can't let anyone stop us." Grace's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say those words. "But how? Your family, your reputation." "We'll figure it out," Ryan said with determination. "I don't care about anything else. I want to be with you." And so, their journey began. It wouldn't be easy. They would face countless challenges. Pressure from Ryan's family, judgment from society, and the struggles that came with being in a secret relationship. But they were determined to make it work. For the first time, Grace and Ryan realized that their love was worth fighting for, no matter what it took. In the end, they would find a way to be together, not as a boss and an employee, but as two people who had fallen deeply in love and were willing to fight for their happiness. It wouldn't be easy, but their secret affair would turn into something beautiful, and their love story would be one they would never have to hide again.